Welcome to Accelerate Your Wealth, a podcast by Rebecca Robertson, founder and director of Evolution Financial Planning. This series, we're focusing on female financial independence, looking towards a stronger financial future. Be sure to let us know your thoughts on the show, and please do connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn or Instagram, or head over to www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk.
So today we are going to be talking to Dominique Mulally, who is a profit and wealth strategist and founder of Financially Fierce Females. She works with women in business to help them build profitable, sustainable businesses that can leverage for personal wealth and afford them a life most only dream about. With 21 years or 20 plus years in financial services and 13 years as a business owner, Dominique has coached hundreds of women to help them with their mindset, strategies, change their relationship with money, and how they see their business to put them on a path to building real wealth. She is a qualified financial advisor, which I believe was in Australia, and holds a diploma in analytical hypnotherapy. Sorry, I'm not getting my words out very well today. And she's also a practitioner in NLP and EFT. So we're going to be joining Dominique, where we're going to be talking about what it takes to make money in business. We're talking about being intentional, non-cookie cutter approach to making money in business. So I'd love to hear your feedback, and do let us know what you think of today's show. Well, wait for this bombshell. It's Rebecca and Dominique in the room together, and this always gets super interesting. And we're promised not to rant too much, but we do get on our soapbox a little bit, don't we?
We do, because we share similar values and views on building wealth and building businesses and the online space, and we have a whole plethora of conversations that we can talk about. So yeah, at least our conversations are always interesting, that's for sure.
That is definitely for sure.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking to you about one of our little pet hates around, not so much all about the online space, but it's definitely around making money in business. So we both see a lot of business owners who, I don't know, you might tell me if I'm wrong here, but they sort of go to a particular coach and they get told that they should do things a certain way, whether that's a marketing coach, an online coach, a business coach that likes, finds success a certain way.
Yeah.
And that particular coach gives them their concept of ideas, but actually doesn't work for them. Actually, it's not aligned to them. It's not part of their skill set. And then they think they're failing and they're rubbish. Yeah. And then they go to another coach and they get told something else. And they go to another and they get told something else. And by the end of it, they're completely confused and actually don't know how they can be making more money in their business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have I summarised that well enough?
You have. And it's like, where do we even start with this topic?
So
let's start with the whole cookie cutter approach, because I think that's what you're alluding to. So yeah, we see obviously so many, we'll say women, because that's primarily our audience.
Yeah.
So many amazing, phenomenal women in business struggle to make money in the business and feel that there's something wrong with them because of the unconscious expectations that are being set in the online space. So there are a lot of false narratives that are being talked about in terms of how much money you should be making and what the definition of success looks like, and all of these types of things. And there is a cookie cutter approach which is happening, where people think that the only way to build a business is one certain way. And the problem with that is you have people in this industry, and I'm going to call it out, who call themselves business coaches, but by rights have no right to call themselves business coaches, because beyond their own business, they really don't have any credibility or experience in building a business. And there are so many facets that go into building a profitable, sustainable business. And that is the difference. There are people who are very good at making money, and they're very good at making money for themselves. But when it comes to teaching the key foundational elements of building a sustainable business that has longevity over the years, that is a very, very different skill set. Yeah. And there are so many facets that come into that. One is really understanding who this person is who's trying to build this business. What's their time commitments? What is their personality like? Are they an introvert? Are they an extrovert? What type of business are they trying to build? What are their goals? What are their sales skills? Do they have sales skills? Do they have marketing skills? What's their mindset? There's all these different facets that come into it. People try to take a silo approach when it comes to building business. Once you're making money in your business, then there will be areas that you may need to dial down on a little bit more. Say, for example, you might need to strengthen your marketing skills or maybe your sales skills. But until you actually start making money in your business, there are only 3 core components that you should be focused on. And that is your mindset and making sure that you have the resilience to actually get back up over and over again every time you get a knock. Because let's be honest, being in business is not glamorous. It is fucking hard work. And again, the online space likes to glamorize it. Oh, I had a 100K launch. I did this, I did that. I did it all in 6 months. Yeah, you might have your unicorns who have done that. And I say unicorns because they are very rare. But the backstory usually behind that is they've been grafting away for years, or they've leveraged their existing relationships or a client base from maybe an old business that they've had. And so there needs to be a lot more transparency.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I know somebody who's done very, very well, very, very quickly. And they completely grafted. I'm not taking anything away from them. But their financial and family circumstances are very different from, say, for example, a single mum who's bringing up children and doesn't have any parental support. None of it's put into any context, right?
No, exactly.
Not at all. And then we then sit there and compare. It's not fair on anybody.
No, exactly. And it's like trying to compare apples with oranges. Everyone has a different set of values. Everyone has a different definition of what success is. And everyone has different personality traits. I, for example, I'm more of an introvert. Now, I just want to correct what the definition of introvert is, because people think an introvert is someone who's not confident. That fucking definitely ain't me. I can stand on a stage and talk to, 500 people, no problems. But put me in a room with people for 2 days, and by day 2, I'm exhausted and need to lie down in a dark room somewhere. So for me, I find social media exhausting. I find the need to be on social media constantly exhausting. Now, for an extrovert, they would find some of the people find social media easy. They love it. They can be on stories like 15 times a day. I look at them and go, oh my God, I couldn't think of anything more exhausting. Like, that's just not for me. So it's understanding that what works for one person doesn't work for another. For me, for example, and this is something that Rebecca and I were just talking about before she hit record, I'm really good at relationship marketing. That is my superpower. So put me in a room with people and connect. I'm an amazing connector, and I'm an amazing connector and collaborator. So that works really, really well for me. My business is heavily built and has always been heavily built on referrals. But ask me to show up every day on stories, and I'm going to be like,
not going to happen.
No chance.
There's an interesting point here. So I used to work, I've done a TEDx talk, and I've worked with speaker trainers, and I've come across several in my time. And, there was a phase where you had to learn how to speak on stage when that was the thing. I've been in business too long now. I sound so like what's that word when you become like
cynical?
Like an old funny daddy. Like I'm such an old funny daddy. And yeah, that they were teaching people who were massively introverted to speak on stage.
Yeah.
And I would often ask the question, hang on a minute, is this because you're just not confident and you don't like public speaking? Because that, like, nobody really loves, so the odd few love public speaking. I don't mind it. I can do it. I've done a TEDx talk. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can consistently want to do that in your business every day, because that might mean that you need to be okay with traveling. You might need to be away from home more. It's a different business model, right?
Absolutely.
And the same applies for the online space. So I see certain coaches and trainers saying, oh, okay, you need to be doing a live every day. When it was, that time when everyone had to do lives. Now it's reels. But then it was lives, and you have to do a live a day. And, people would go into these lives and they hated it. It was just draining. Now, there's a difference between the energy that you've described, like the values of who you are as a person and what energizes you and what lights you up, to just sort of like not having the you can do it, but you've just not done it before. You're just not feeling super confident because it's new to you. And I think there's a real definition of recognizing about what you enjoy and what you're good at. And it's some things you can get good at. And there's something recently I was reminded about. I don't know if you've heard of it. It used to be called wealth dynamics.
Yes.
It's now called talent dynamics.
Okay.
And I took this score 3 years ago. And so you basically have different, you come out like a square, like a spectrum,
Yeah.
one of those profiles. But I think it really highlights this issue in business around trying to do all things at once all the time, which you can't. So when I first took this, I was doing everything in my business. I was doing all the marketing, I was doing all the analysing, I was doing all the customer service, all the detail, all the customer care, everything. So I'm one of these people that actually can do every skill set. So at the top end, it had like the creative, which from memory is star, which is pretty obvious what you would do. You'd be on stage. And then there's the creative, and there's sort of a bit of an organizer, but not in too much detail. And then you have one side of the square, which is more the supporter, the organizer. And then at the bottom, you have the very detailed person, like super detailed. And then the other side of the square, you have somebody who is more, I think there's a bit, I forget now, but anyway, you get the point, right? You have different sides of the square that you have different profiles. So I was able to do all four equally. I was literally 24, 24, 24, and then like 26% in one particular area. And then I retook it a couple of weeks ago. And actually I was more in the creative and I was more in the star side. And actually that's since I've leaned into more what I enjoy in business, the roles and the jobs. I've literally outsourced everything that doesn't involve the things that I enjoy doing. So the only things that brings in the most revenue and only I can do happen to be the things that I really like, which is a bonus. And I repeat that. So what are you enjoying in your business? What only you can do that will bring in revenue, but actually lights you up?
Yes.
So that to me is the creative side of the business and talking to clients. So I do these podcasts, I talk to clients, that's all. I retook the profile. Happens that I'm less in creative, I'm less in, the detail, because I am. I'm less in the supportive and organising, because I am. And I'm less in the supporting side, because I've got people supporting me. I'm more in the creative and doing stuff. So sometimes you could be like a bit of a me, where you can do a little bit of everything. Or you might be somebody that's super detailed, really good at organising, but you're not somebody that's very creative, and you're not somebody that wants to be on stage, but you're a business owner. But then you've got your coach telling you to go and do lives every day. And this is where it's a bit like not all things work for all people.
No, absolutely not. And it's also, we need to talk about, once you start making the money in your business, the first thing that you should be doing is understanding what are your revenue generating activities and tasks and focusing on them. And then, as Rebecca has mentioned, you want to outsource all the things that you're not good at or don't like. Because when you do that, it frees up not only your time, but your creative energy, which then allows you to focus more on the revenue generating tasks and the activities that you do enjoy, which then gives more fuel and more energy to that, which then allows you to generate more revenue, more profit through the business. But we need to be really intentional with the money that we're making in our business, and be very intentional with how we're spending the money in our business, so that allows us to free up that time so that we can focus on the things that we enjoy. Now, the caveat to that is we have to remember that in those early stages of business, you are going to wear all of those hats. And again, people demonize the hustle. I'm sorry, but you do need to hustle in your business if you want to get somewhere in those early stages. I'm not talking beyond a certain point, because then that's when you do have an issue around, you can't sustain allocation of time. Exactly.
Burn out. You can't do it forever. And unfortunately, but a lot of people live off the adrenaline. So they don't actually recognize that they're at burnout, or they repeat the cycle over and over again. For me, it wasn't so much the hustle, it was the cash, what I call the cash flow hustle. So I would spend it all so that I was like, fine, well, I'll make some more money next month, because I lived off the fact of having the cash flow hustle, rather than just allowing the bank account to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So recognizing what your demon drivers are, because that could be fueling you in the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, if we talk about, the online space, people talk a lot about revenue and not enough about profit. And I always say, I don't give shit how much revenue you're turning over. Let me have a look at your profit margins, because then I'll tell you whether you have a healthy business. Because the only thing that ever matters in business is your profit. That's it. If you think from an investor perspective, if someone was to come in and look to buy your business, the only thing they're interested in is your profit margins, because that details to them how healthy, financially healthy your business is. So you, for example, I don't want to say only, because that, but let's say, for example, you were only generating 50 or 60,000 pounds in your business. And again, that's not to knock anyone down. It's just to give you an example.
No.
If your profit margin was at 50%, you have an amazing business, because that means that you have very high profit margins. Now, someone with the same revenue, if their profit margin was in the service, I'm talking about in the service-based business, because obviously if you have product-based businesses, the expectations of profit margins are very, very different. But let's say, for example, you have 60,000, you're still a service-based business, but your profit margin is around 5%, then there's something seriously wrong. There's something fundamentally going on within your business where you're not redirecting that cash, or the cash flow that's coming in a way that is actually allowing you to generate more revenue and more profits. So that is something that we want to look at. But in the online space, I said, there's a glamorizations of 6 figures of success, or 7 figures of business, and all the 7 figures of revenue, and having a 7-figure business. Like, that's great. But no one really cares, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is profit. And the only thing that also matters is, are you in fact happy? So what I see, and you probably see this a lot, my clients, they get to 6 figures and then they go, well, now what? Now what? Because they find out that they're working all of these hours. They're now in that hustle mode and they're not happy. They thought that achieving those goals and achieving that revenue would somehow mysteriously make their lives better, when in fact it doesn't.
No. And I do agree. And I think a lot of people misunderstand your message there, that they think that you're talking not about profit, they think you're talking about turnover. Mm-hmm. Now, because I've seen this a couple of times online, and so they think, well, yes, you need to have like the net profit, but in the day, if you haven't got the big turnover, you haven't got, it's not about, to me, it's not about how big the figure is. Correct. It's about actually how profitable your margin is, and what is your actual goal of the business. So for me at the moment, my goal for my business is to bring on clients that are IFA clients, that are ongoing clients. They don't have to be, they choose. Because then in 10, 15, 20 years time, when I decide to retire, I would sell that business, and that is what is profitable for my business. Yeah. Nearer that time, I will have to look at the books more closely, and because somebody would want to see that funds under management is a profitable model. And correct, they're not actually buying my business, they're buying my bank of clients. They're buying your book, yeah. So they're not so worried about my profit margins. Now, for me, I choose to have at this moment in time a profitable business, but not as profitable as it could be, because I outsource so much. And this is where some people have more lifestyle businesses. Now, what I mean by that is that there's another level to that. Yeah. In the truest sense is actually the other side of this online is the lifestyle business is more referred to as somebody who basically works online, works from a beach, and they basically use their holidays as a reason to put sort of things through the books. Yeah. And there's a fine line with that as to what is a tax deductible expense and what's not, and you have to be quite careful with that. And I'm not suggesting people aren't careful at all, but that is a sort of the truest sense of a lifestyle business, where you are literally your business is paying for your lifestyle, in the sense that you're not having to pay yourself very much because you've got such high expenditure. But actually, if you looked at the books, that wouldn't be as a profitable business. But if you don't plan on selling that business, and it's, for example, in your own name, and it's not a brand or an asset that you can sell, it's just a lifestyle. You're choosing to run the business in that life. That's a different model than, say, I don't know, another service-based business where they're helping business owners, and they are a collective of board of people, and they run multiple of courses and training providers, and they have speakers that go out to corporate events, and etc., etc. That'd be a very different model. Even though they're both helping business owners, it's a very different business model, because they've got a board of people to consider. There's possibly a partnership agreement in place, and it needs to be run in a profitable manner. Correct. And I always say, like, it's very much driven by the business owner themselves. So I always say there's 2 types of businesses. There's a lifestyle business, which you've mentioned, and there's a legacy business. And from a wealth perspective, a lifestyle business is usually, it's not a you don't have a board of directors or anything like that.
and all of the profits that that business is making are being paid out to the shareholder, which is usually a solopreneur, to actually build their wealth and start building their assets. With a legacy-based business, the intention is very, very different, because what you're looking to do is potentially sell that business at some point in the future to actually release the equity and to build wealth using the business. So the directive and the vision of those two businesses is very, very different. And it is important when you're building your business, and you're maybe not in the early stages, because you only go on the early stages just to make money. But when you start making money, you need to really truly understand what is your intention with this business. Now, for some people, most people, majority of people, it will be a lifestyle business. But there are people like yourself and me, for example, who are looking to build a sellable asset. And there are different things that we need to consider in order for that to be a viable investment for a potential buyer in the future. But that's where the majority of the wealth will come from, if you're talking about from a wealth building perspective, will come from is upon the sale of that asset. Yeah. So it is about being really intentional, understanding what are you doing with your business, but also as well, what are you doing with the profits that you're making in that business? Now, profits, again, you could be using that in both a lifestyle or a legacy business to accumulate a team, but the direction and the way that you drive that moving forwards and the vision will be very, very different depending on, whether it's lifestyle or legacy. Yeah.
So like my example was, I sort of pay out for more of a team at the moment. And if I reduce that back, I'd probably work 3 or 4 more times more hours per week. But I'm choosing to sort of not, because I've still got young children. Yeah. And actually it gives me focus to build other revenue streams. Yeah. So, which I enjoy more than doing all the admin. So yes, the business goes in phases, right? You don't always know all the answers all at once, and it's very much a organic, evolving beast. And I don't know about you, but if you look back to a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, for me 10 years ago, it's sort of been the same, but it's felt so different at the same time. Yeah, things just shift and change, and how you're feeling at that time really does have a lot to do with it. And what we've talked about, and you mentioned before we came on record, there's 3 elements to business. That's mindset, sales, and marketing. Yeah. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I'm sure you were really, really engrossed there, and it will be back in just a second. I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about a membership that I have that is very fresh and very new to 2020. And I'm super excited to be sharing this. This is something that I've had on the cards for a while, but I didn't quite know it. So if you're somebody in business that wants to connect more, wants to spend more time with like-minded people, wants to collaborate, and wants to be in an environment where you're basically supported, then my Alliance Collective membership might be the thing for you. So if you go to www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk, have a look at how to work with me. You'll see a page there that will tell you information about the membership. And if you want to book a call with me to discuss if it's a good fit, then please do go ahead and book a call, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. In the meantime, I will go back to the show. Enjoy. And if you like today's show, please do subscribe and leave a review, especially on iTunes. It really does help show iTunes how well we're doing with our shows. Thank you so much. But they're huge subjects. So your mindset will affect what business model you have and how that evolves in the future as your business model grows and your confidence grows. Your sales and your marketing, well, it depends on who you've got around you and how they're doing things as to what is the recent fad, or looking at your values like we've talked about to be more aligned to how you sell, how you market. But there is a real understanding or need to have that education, to go and speak to different people, but be really clear on what it is you want and what you want to achieve, I think is what's paramount. And otherwise it does feel like, I'm not suggesting blind leading the blind, but if you're not clear on your direction, like you said, then how can you know the person you're going to go and work with is going to be right for you? And if you're going to get the return of investment, I think is what I'm trying to suggest. Around who you're working with and how you're evolving, because we don't know what we don't know. We do need to go and pay for some expert advice, but really understanding what it is you're buying into and what you're getting for your money, I think is imperative.
It's key. And I see so many of my clients have come to me and they've spent thousands on people and just not got the results that they want. And that part of that is because they're not clear. Part of that is because they think they're going to get a quick fix. And, just going back to what we were saying about the whole, the 3 key elements really, pre-6 figures especially, is just focus on your mindset, your sales, and your marketing. If you can sell, if you can master the ability to sell, you are never, ever going to be in a position where you are not making money in your business. But people think, oh, well, if I get a branding coach and I have a pretty website and I do this and I do that, that's going to make me money. That's not going to make you money. Your ability to make money comes from the conversations that you're having, the visibility that you have in your presence as an online business or an offline business, whatever your business looks like. And it's being able to confidently then close those conversations to make the sale. That should be everyone's focus. When you get into business, that should be your core focus, is understand how to make sales in your business. Once you then start to when you know how to make sales in your business, you're never going to be without money. And then that's when you can pretty up your website, or you can pay for a marketing coach because you don't want to do social media or whatever it may be. But for me, that's that core skill of building a business, a successful business, all comes back to one thing, and that is having the ability to sell, having the ability to make money. The managing money, you can outsource that. The making money, the multiplying money, you can outsource that. That's where the likes of Rebecca comes into it. But the making component falls on you, and no one that you can employ via, whether it be a marketing coach, a business coach, whatever it is, a LinkedIn coach, no one has that ability to make money but you. And I think that, again, is where a lot of people in the online space go wrong, is they focus on all of these other things rather than understanding, okay, how do I master the ability to make money? Because that's all you should be focused on. And part of it will be about marketing, but for a lot of women, a large part of it is to do with the mindset. So that's why the mindset underpins all of it as well.
I totally agree. And I think mainly that comes down to how much they charge, how they charge, how much they undercut themselves and don't charge enough.
Yeah.
How they position that sale.
Yeah.
And it's all about the positioning, and overcoming objections before they even are an objection. So thinking through that sales process.
Exactly.
And also around visibility, because regardless of what type of business you've got, you need to be visible in some degree, whether it's having a good website or speaking or going to on other people's podcasts. You don't have to have your own podcast, but however visible you are, however you're going to do it, visibility and sales process. And I totally agree with you about the outsourcing, because you can eventually. So I've got a client relationship manager, and every inquiry we have come through for my regulated business, they speak to Katie first, because in April we had 54 leads.
Wow.
I don't have time to speak to 54 people, because what I do is I give far too much away for free. Katie's so much more rude. She's
like the gatekeeper.
Yeah, she's my massive gatekeeper. Yeah. But she is very, very good at talking to people. And I'm not saying she's not selling anything, she's just positioning. But it took me probably 6 years after having, maybe even a little bit longer, of having my business, then I had a Katie. I didn't have somebody doing that piece for a long time, because I needed to understand the psychology, thought process, the objections, how we handled that, what we said, what we didn't say, what clients wanted to know, what information they needed. I needed to make sure that was slick as possible before I could even consider outsourcing that.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people focus on the visibility, and they get that wrong.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought this up, because you mentioned it a couple of times. This is where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't have a sales process. And a sales process is not just about the call, it's the end-to-end process of how do you actually attract your customer, and then how does that then convert? What is the middle ground between that? What is all the steps that have to happen in the business to get them from an unknown to a converted buyer? And a lot of people don't have a sales process. They don't have a clear idea of how they're attracting their customers. As I said, for some people it might be social media. For other people it might be speaking on stages, doing guest expert masterclasses, podcasting, whatever it is. But how are you attracting your clients or your customers, your demographic, the people you want to work with, to actually know who you are? That's the visibility piece. And then how are you nurturing those relationships? What are you doing to actually
that's key.
Yes.
That's key. I spoke to a client yesterday and we had a lovely, lovely chat, and I'd give her some tips and she's fine now. And she's a sort of a budding author. She's got a book deal. She's speaking as well. And she's I said to her, how's revenue? Well, she's an author, like revenue is based on author sales. And we talked about a course, and she's going to speaking at events, but she hasn't got anything to pull people through from there. There's no freebie, there's no webinar, there's no event, there's no challenge, there's no website link, there's no discovery call, there's nothing, there's absolutely nothing. So there is no sales process, and that's what I highlighted to her. You know, you need some sort of nurturing sales process, because otherwise why bother going to the event? Literally, don't think people are going to bite your hand off, because you haven't even, if they asked you and they were literally biting your hand off, you wouldn't even know what to say to them, because you haven't got anything to give them. You couldn't even give them a link or say let's chat tomorrow, because you wouldn't even know what to say.
And the truth is that only 3% of the market are ever in buy mode. They're only ever in that real like blood zone where they're thirsty to buy. So the other 97% are either they don't really understand they have a problem, or it's not urgent enough, or it's not top of mind. So your job as a business owner is to always be top of mind, is to nurture those relationships, whether it be newsletters, podcasts, speaking events, whatever it is, so that when they are wanting to buy and they're primed in a position where they're now considering it, you're top of mind. They know where to go to actually facilitate that. And a lot of people miss that part of the process as well. They think, well, they just downloaded my freebie. That's great. Okay, but what are you doing to nurture relationships? And especially, again, it goes back to what we were speaking about before we hit record, Rebecca, is people need to understand that business has always been and will always be about relationships. How are you nurturing those relationships? And you don't nurture those relationships with the assumption that someone is always going to be buying from you, but you nurture those relationships with genuine, a genuine desire to build an authentic relationship, provide value. How are you providing value to your potential customers or your clients? Because that's where the know, like, and trust factor comes into it, you know? And again, if we talk about...
But there's a bit of slip up there. This is where I think a lot of women get that and they end up doing a lot for free and still not having a sales process. They do that bit not too bad. That marketing, upfront marketing, not too bad generally. I don't find that's a massive issue. But then they do too much for free, and they don't actually offer anything. There is no sales psychology behind any of it.
Yes, absolutely. So we need to remember that we're business owners and we're in the business to make money. Okay. That first and foremost, I say that and I claim that unapologetically. I'm not here to hand out freebies. Does that mean that I don't provide value? Absolutely not. But I have my podcast. I have other free resources for people who don't have the means available to employ my services right now. But for those people who want to pay me and have a conversation about it, let's bring it on. I make no apologies for the fees that I charge. We as women have to stop making apologies for making money in our business, for our prices.
Amen.
Our prices are what our prices are. Like, it is what it is.
Doubled. I was talking to a lady called Emma Clayton. You can check out another podcast, and we talked about how women are underpaying themselves. And she had many statistics. I think it's coming out on the 6th of May, actually. I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out, but it's it's number 61, only because I've got it in the screen in front of me. I did not prepare that. But we talk a lot about the statistics around how women in business are not paying themselves enough. They're not charging enough. Not that they're not paying themselves enough. They're not charging enough. Actually undercharging massively.
It's a huge problem for women in business, and it comes down to confidence. It comes down to really truly not understanding the value that you bring as a provider of a service or a product or whatever it may be. So it's all about confidence and conviction. You have to believe in whatever it is that you are selling and you have to offer, because if you don't believe in it, that's where it's not authentic, but it's also where then the potential buyer loses confidence, because and this is where when people say, oh, just double your prices, it's like, well, hang on a minute.
You can't do that.
You have to do it incrementally, because if you have an issue charging at this price, how the hell are you going to charge at double the price?
And I found that myself. I found that totally in my business. Last January this year, prior, I used to charge for a financial I did a report, and if the client went ahead, then I charged them a fee. In January, I charged them for the report, not if they went ahead or not, because 9 times out of 10 they did go ahead, because it was literally truly bespoke, individual, unbiased, if they should stay with their existing company because I'm completely independent, then that's what I'd advise. And I was like, it doesn't feel right to me to then be given the advice and then asking for the money, but part of it might be, well, to stay where you are and change this fund, but can I have this amount of money, please? It just didn't fit right. So I was like, okay, actually I need to start charging for the report. And I thought, there's a real issue around upfront charging for financial advisors around something called RDR, and especially around defined benefit pensions. So defined benefit pensions, and they there's a real controversy around it. And so I thought, well, that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm charging up front for the advice, but it's done in such a different way. And I think from an education, I had to have to educate the clients around it. But I first had to get over a massive mindset around that myself before I could then offer it to other people, so I could explain why it was a benefit to them, because it was going to be bespoke, because it was going to be individual. It was completely unbiased. So that they wanted the advice, so they pay for the advice. And so understanding the client's psychology and what they're actually buying into and what they're buying into you for is crucial. And that made a massive difference to how I positioned what I did and how I worked with clients.
100%. And I can absolutely relate to what you're talking about, because when I started my financial advisor journey, I came into it, I was a financial advisor in Australia, where the market is very, very different. And I came into it at a time where commissions were no longer allowed. So I didn't know any different. I was just, my standard fee was like £1,500. That was my standard fee. And then it'd be on top of that would be other research, like other fees, depending on what we were doing for the clients. And all the old lifers, as we called them, had all of these mindset issues because they come from a commission-based environment. And this wasn't just women, this was men as well. They come from a commission-based environment where they're like, clients are never going to pay that. They're just never going to pay that. And it was interesting time for me to see this complete disconnect, because I didn't know any different. I'm like, well, the price is what the price is. I don't know any different. I'm charging an upfront fee. Whereas they came from an industry and a model where it was completely different and everything was commission-based. And your mindset is the biggest thing that will hold you back when it comes to making your business. So during that time, I was flying and I was seeing some of my colleagues struggling because they couldn't get the mindset around the transition of being now an upfront fee based business as opposed to a commission based business. And it's the same for us, but it's all about how you translate the value. I had no issues translating the value of my services to a client. Whereas for some of those people, they struggled. And we see it the same with our clients and our customers that we work with now. It's the same thing. You have to really truly understand the transformational value that your services or your product offer to a would-be buyer. And you have to be confident in articulating that. That's when you stand firm in your conviction of your pricing. That's when you have the full belief. And when you have that full belief, you will get pushbacks about price. Of course you will. But guess what? Those people are not your clients either. If you articulate the value and someone still doesn't see the value in what it is that you do, it's not your job to convince them. There are plenty of other people out there who will help them. They may not get the service, or they might not get the value that you offer or the transformation, but that's not your problem. And again, that's where we as women have to be unapologetic about that. The price is the price. This is the value and the transformation I offer. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but the fee is what it is.
But I also think for me, I totally agree with everything you're saying, that there's elements of that evolving growth where you just need to evolve it and shift it and analyze it and look at it. But there's also the issue around enoughness, where, for example, for me, I never felt for a long time good enough to charge a certain amount, because I'd only been in it, I'd only had 15 years experience, and I wasn't chartered, or I wasn't this, I wasn't that. And as women, I see a lot of women doing this. They're getting more qualifications, more certificates, more and more and more and more. And I did it with awards. They're sitting behind me as I'm recording. I did it with awards. I applied for a load of awards, and it wasn't for anybody else. I wasn't doing it for post external gratification. It was to prove to myself that validation. I was good enough. And I think we do that a lot, and it wasn't actually, those issues didn't go away. I just looked back and went, why am I doing this? This has not made me feel any better. Why am I doing this? It wasn't until I actually looked much, much deeper much deeper into past traumas, that I actually figured out that it was much more about how I felt about myself.
Absolutely. And you know what, for women in business, it always comes back to this. And I always said, you know, when I was a financial advisor, I was fascinated. So about human psychology, I was fascinated at the difference in the conversations between my male clients and my female clients when it comes to wealth and building wealth. So again, in Australia, the market is very, very different. So in Australia, you have to have a financial advisor, you have a private pension, and you have to have a conversation at least once or twice a year. So that's a law, that's standard. So the conversations between the men and the females from a monetary perspective and, you know, and building wealth were very, very different. And it comes back to what you were talking about. For women, there's so much emotional attachment to money and what it means to have money, or what it means to make money, what it means to receive money. And so for women, we really make it about ourselves and being enough. Whereas for men, that's how they measure their success, is by how much money they're making. So I always say, like, women are driven by their values and their contributions. That's why women often struggle with making money and receiving money, because they feel like, oh, well, it didn't take me that long, and you know, and I just want to give value, and I just want to be amazing, all these things. Whereas for a man, as I said, he's driven by his ego, and in not all instances, but a lot of instances, they're driven by the ego and power and control. And that's the way they show their dominance. And that's the way they show their place. Whereas for a woman, it's about value and contribution. So there is this absolute disconnect from a psychology between the two sexes as well, around their approaches to making money, managing money, multiplying money, all of those different things. And there are different mindsets that we need to apply to each of those structures as well, because it's a different mindset when you're making money. It's a different mindset to managing money. And then it's a whole nother mindset to actually multiplying that money, which is obviously what the wealth element is as well.
Definitely. Well, I've loved our chat today. I don't think we got on too much of a rant.
No, we didn't. We were actually, no, we didn't. Not at all. We didn't actually at all.
Yeah, I love it. And the key words for me are around intention, be intentional.
Yeah.
Cookie cutter. So don't always have a cookie cut. Know what it is you're actually wanting to allow yourself to make more money. So I've really enjoyed our chat today. How can people connect with you if they want to work with you? How does that work?
So probably best on LinkedIn at the moment. I am on Instagram, but I'm probably more active on LinkedIn. So yeah,
cool.
Get me on LinkedIn, and it's just my name. My name's Dominique Mulally. Yeah.
Brilliant. And there's links in the show notes, so they'll be able to check you out there. And have you got anything coming up that you want to share with us?
No, not that I can think of. Nothing too
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Nothing on the.
I'm glad to hear that, because every conversation I've had with you over the last year, it was almost like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. I'm so glad to hear this sort of scaled back, more calmer Dominique. It's lovely to hear.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit different. As obviously my business is transitioning and pivoting at the moment, so there is a lot more space in the diary, which is great, because I have room to be more creative, and that's why it's really important to allow. When you can outsource it, because being a CEO of your business, you need that time and space in your diary. So I definitely have more time and space these days, which is good.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sure you will come back. You will hear from Dominique, I'm sure, in the future. For now, it's a goodbye from me. And this is where, like, that sketch, isn't it? What's that sketch? For that old-fashioned sketch? You might have been in Australia at the time. I don't know. Where he says he goes, "This goodbye." He says it's a goodbye from him, and then he turns around and says it's a goodbye from him. I was just trying to do that sketch, but it didn't really come out very well. Bye then. I'll just say bye.
Bye.